I always forget to open up the camera. Well, good evening. This is a new live stream. And tonight, I wanted to talk about the. What did I want to talk about tonight? Oh my goodness. Can food really heal us? What are the biggest lies we've been told about healthy food? Yeah, gonna stumble. Gonna totally stumble. Let me try this again. Can food really heal us? In a lot of ways, it seems that there are many health professionals that believe that food, what goes into our bodies, has nothing to do with whether or not we are going to end up with the modern diseases that we deal with today: osteoporosis, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, back pain, you name it. They regularly will argue that what we eat does not does not affect our health the way that we sometimes feel like it would. But I've been doing some studying. I've been doing a lot of studying for the past 2 years. And I think there's some misconceptions that I would like to talk about tonight. Misconceptions that are leaving us in a position of confusion. And we're dealing with diseases today that were not common 150 years ago. 150 years ago, people were dealing with exposure and malnourishment, disease, but they weren't dealing with heart disease. They weren't dealing with cancer. They weren't dealing with diabetes. These are diseases that are happening to us today. They're new. And that surprised me. That absolutely surprised me when I learned that. I started to learn this from a gentleman named Dr. Anthony Chafee. Dr. Anthony Chafee let me know that that okay, clogged arteries of the heart attacks, heart disease. This is a new disease in North America. You go back 150 years ago, people were not dealing with that disease. And it seems that for the majority of the Earth's population in antiquity, heart disease was not common. It seems like certain spots it would show up, but it wasn't happening everywhere all the time throughout history. It is something that's new in our culture today. That shocked me to learn that. That lets me know then that heart disease, we might have a propensity as a population or as individuals to get clogged arteries, to get heart attacks. But it's only triggered by the food that we eat. That that shocked me. That absolutely shocked me. My amazing father, has had 4 heart attacks. And we were told, stay away from the normal food that we would eat. Normal being hamburger and chicken, vegetables, potatoes, pasta. And they were like, stay away from fat, stay away from salt, stay away from the proteins, because that's what got you overweight. That's what gave you a heart attack. And that really shocked me. I've been studying for 2 years, over 2 years now. And I've adopted and implemented what I've been learning from the books and from these doctors. And I've lost a ton of weight, but it's become evident that what is causing us to be sick is not the food of our ancestors. It's the food of today. Okay, okay. I've got a whole host of questions I've written down here so I don't get distracted and wander off and start talking about something random. What are the biggest lies we've been told today about healthy food? Here's a big one. We are advertised to Every day we're bombarded with advertisements from in the movies and on YouTube and television, radio, not to mention our amazing parents, the wonderful doctors, and I'm giving them positive names because you know what? Most people are just trying to do the best they can and they want to be a help. And so they give us advice and they send us into the center of the store looking for whole grain this, low processed that, um, low sugar this, whole grain that. And I, what I've been learning is that the more our food is processed in factories, the less healthy it actually is. Now, if we're comparing this to something like just say cookies, right? Some super processed, just flavor cookies. Yeah, the healthier food is better. The healthier food is better. But to think that if it comes out of a box and it says healthy on it or says whole grain or says low sugar, low sodium or any of those type of titles, to think that those are healthy, eh, healthy really is the closer to the land that you get, the better it is for you. Have you ever had a garden before? Pull a carrot from the garden, pull a tomato off of the plant, take that into your kitchen, cut it, and eat it. That is way better for you than any package that has a title on it that says healthy this, healthy that. And you look at the ingredients, and the ingredients list is huge and long. That in I'll argue that is not. Those packaged foods are not healthy in comparison to fresh produce from your garden or from the farm. In fact, here's a big one. Here's a big one. Organic. That organic is absolutely healthy. If it says organic, that means it's healthy. Ah, there's a as I've been studying, there's a lot of the industry is still undecided and there's no standard per se as to what determines something as quote unquote organic. Let me put it this way. Go back to the garden. You pull a tomato from your garden that you grew, put it into your kitchen, and you cut it, you eat it. That is organic. Excuse me. If you have been putting all kinds of chemicals on that tomato, that is less organic. If that tomato went through a factory before you ate it, that's less organic. If that tomato went through a factory and was dried and heated and they put extra vitamins in it artificially, and then it got sent to you in a box, not even a can, but a box, that's even less organic. The more processing we do to it, the more cooking we do to it, the more chemicals we put into it, the less organic it is, in my opinion. The non-professional, but in my opinion, that is less organic. A cow, the meat at the grocery store, Safeway, overweighty. I wanted to say Walmart and Costco. That is more organic, in my opinion, than the food that you're going to get that comes in a box that says healthy all over it or organic all over it. I think that this idea of the food is organic, so that makes it healthy, is a mistake. I really think that if we can stay close to the land, that makes it organic. The closer to the land you can get, the less chemicals that you can get, the less chemicals that you put on the food, on the plants, the more organic it is. And so, yeah, chicken, fish, lamb, beef, that's organic. Organic crackers from the middle of wherever. Probably has less sugar though. Probably has less salt. So got to give credit where credit is due. They are trying, but okay. Here's something else I've been learning. This is something else I've been learning. Food is really what is making us sick. I was alluding to that or saying that at the first part of this, that food is what's making us sick. So if food is what made us sick, would it not stand to reason then that food is what will make us healthy? Okay. Go back 150 years ago. I push it back to 150 because it's like 1925 now. 100 years ago is like 1925. And there's a lot of advancement in our food and in our health. A lot of advancement in our food and technology, including food production, that is present in 1925. But you go back to say 1900 or 1975, and food production is far more primitive. Dare I say it that way? But it definitely doesn't have the massive advancement that our food has today. Heart disease is practically unheard of. We have not, it's barely been heard of. Yes, it's been described. Heart disease has been described. I believe it's by 1970 or 1875. Heart disease has been described in medical literature. And there are people that will argue that back then the medical system was so primitive, was the people were not well educated. They just didn't know. So they didn't know that what was killing people was X. Actually, check this out. Humans are wildly intelligent. And though, yes, today we have the benefit of technology and accumulative knowledge from millennia, especially now with the internet and books and stuff like that, we have access to huge amounts of information. That does not mean that people were somehow wildly ignorant in the past. It was in, I want to say 400 AD. Pretty sure it was 400 AD, 600 or 400 AD in India, where diabetes was discovered. Diabetes was actually discovered in India in like 400 or 600 AD. If these people were wildly primitive and incapable of seeing medicine or seeing medical conditions and understanding the body, there'd be no way they could discover or diagnose diabetes. They didn't call it diabetes in modern terminology, but the description of the disease, yeah. Now, the modern treatment is very, very modern. There were different ways of dealing with diabetes. Now, if food made us sick, what I'm learning is that the high consumption of carbohydrates is what's causing diabetes over a long period of time. Our bodies can only handle so much carbohydrates or sugars being ingested daily. Like, how do I say this? Our bodies can only handle so much sugars being ingested. And the less we ingest, the less we eat, the less we consume of sugar, the better our bodies will do. And back before the invention of insulin, the way that diabetes was being dealt with and had been dealt with is a low carbohydrate, high fat, high protein diet. And when people didn't do that, they didn't last long. They died rather quickly. But there were systems, there were things being put in place before the invention of insulin that was helping people. And I don't understand all the history of it yet. I'm still learning. But food, for the most part, is what's causing the diseases in our populations now. And that means then that it's within our hands, within our ability to reverse the diseases that we're dealing with. What's one of the biggest diseases we're dealing with? obesity. Yes, genetically, we can have a greater propensity for obesity, for being fat. But the majority of the reasons why we are overweight, like we are in our population today, is because of what we're eating, the way we're treating food. It's a major issue. Why do most diets fail? But the carnivore diet that you've been hearing about works differently. Most diets, the vast majority of diets, depend on us denying our hunger, denying ourselves something to eat. We're supposed to just starve ourselves. Think about this. Think about this. Your body, say, needs 1,800 to 2,200 calories per day to just function, to just sustain. Maybe if you're like a really, really smaller person, very sedentary, maybe it'll get down to like, say, 1,700 or 1,600. But you need that many calories. So we'll work with just 2,000 calories for average. And the normal diet will say what we need to do, you and I. We need to not eat 2,000 calories every day. Instead, we're going to reduce our food to 1,800 calories or 1,700 or 1,600 calories. Some get it down to even 1,200 calories, and they're starving themselves. And then the wisdom is, the idea is, because your body's not getting the nutrition that it needs, not getting the calories that it needs, it's then going to pull from all these excess calories that we have in our bodies, and we get skinnier. And for the most part, it actually works. I did it. For the most part, I actually did. For the most part, let me try that again. In the past, I did a starvation diet. It was through a company called Herbalife. I bought these shakes and consumed a whole pile of vitamins and starved my body of the calories that I was told my body wanted. And I consumed 2 shakes, and then I had a balanced regular meal in the evening, protein and vegetables and so forth. How do I say this now? I did lose 36 pounds starving my body. It did work, but it was hard. It was very hard because I was denying my hunger regularly. And you pick your diets, pick them. You're constantly denying yourself what you want. You're denying it. Now, for a lot of us, that what our body wants or what we want is like, ice cream, pancakes, pasta, hamburgers and fries or pizza, whatever it is. That's what we crave. But our bodies are actually starving for nutrition, starving for food. Your body, my body, is desperate for food. And so we fight our bodies. And this battle continues and continues and continues all the way down until we actually get to a healthy size. Or a healthy size, the size that we want, the weight that we want. And then we're supposed to sustain that lower calorie intake to maintain this body forever. And the vast majority of the reasons why these diets fail, because most of us cannot fight that hunger forever. And we end up often going back to the diets that made us sick in the first place. Well, made us fat in the first place. They don't work. In the sense, strictly speaking, if you starve yourself, eventually a lot of us will lose weight. But here's what I've been learning. There are many people who get quite obese, and they go on a starvation diet and they lose weight to a certain point, and then all of a sudden they stop losing weight. And they cannot lose weight no matter how much they're restricting their body, restricting their bodies. I heard about this one lady. She had done the restriction dieting, right? And she had lost some weight. She really did. Something like 25 pounds, 30 pounds, something like this. 40, I don't know. And she actually had done this many times. where she had restricted her diet, and her body lost a certain amount of weight, and then it would just stop, and it would just plateau, and she would starve herself. Eventually, she would give in and eat again, and then she would starve herself and eat again and starve herself and eat. And she'd done this yo-yo dieting for, well, when I say a couple of decades, at least a decade, but a couple of decades sounds, if I'm remembering correctly, it was a couple of decades. And she got onto the carnivore diet, right? Really strict. She was very disciplined with herself. And she lost a certain amount of weight and then plateaued. And she restricted her diet down to something like 600 calories, 800 calories a day. And she wasn't losing weight. And it seems that our bodies are incredibly well designed for survival. And it will sacrifice certain metabolic functions, certain like your brain functions and organ functions in order to prolong life. So that if we were in a super desperate situation, if we were going to starve, like we were starving, we would not die. We would not thrive, but we would not die. And this lady's body's mechanism was triggered that way. She actually had to start eating more. She had to start eating more food, and in her mind, a significant amount more food in order to start losing weight. Her body was not starving for calories. Her body was starving for nutrition. And I'll argue the North American population, Canada, United States, Australia, Britain, our bodies are starving for nutrition. We are wildly over-caloried, undernourished people. And I think that is one of the reasons why we are so obese. Because check this out. Okay, our bodies do not deal with all calories exactly the same. Our bodies do not deal with calories exactly the same. What is hiding behind me over here? Oh, I see. All right. Anyways, our bodies do not deal with calories exactly the same. Illustration. If I gave you 2,000 calories of salmon, your body will wildly deal with that differently than 2,000 calories of candy bars. A lot of us in our standard American diet consume copious amounts of sugars, copious amounts of oxalates, but sugars, carbohydrates. And our bodies are being starved of the nutrition that it really needs: fat, cholesterol, protein, minerals, vitamins. And so our bodies are craving for that nutrition. So we eat a bunch of food. We're full. We're totally full. And within a couple of hours, we're starving again. And so we eat, and then we're starving again, and we eat. And I think, I'll argue, this is what causes us to get to a place where we are so overweight, because our bodies are triggered for more food and more food and more food and more food. What if I gave you that salmon that I was talking about? Salmon and say lamb. There you go. Lamb. Salmon and lamb. That's what you get to eat. How much of that could you eat? Like how much could you go in a day eating that? And I can hear some people saying, well, they would get sick of it, right? They would get sick of it. Okay. But could you gorge on salmon and lamb as much as you could gorge on your favorite junk food? Pizza, burger, fries, candy bars, what? Pick it, right? Could you? I mean, how many donuts could you consume, or pizza? How much pizza could you consume? And then the next day consume that exact same amount in salmon and lamb? I don't think we could do it. Well, and I say we because, I can eat a couple of Whoppers. I can eat a lot of pizza. But then if I have, ground beef, salmon, lamb, chicken, there's a limit. There really is a limit. And I have a hard time overeating it. Now, Dr. Sean Baker does argue, yes, you can overeat on meat. It's absolutely possible. But I'm going to argue that you have to work a lot harder at it. If you're trying to lose weight, you do have to be conscious of what you're eating and how much. But the standard American diet is harder to not overeat on that and much harder to overeat on the carnivore diet. As a carnivore, obviously I'm eating no vegetables. I'm eating no plants of any kind, right? As a carnivore, I'm not eating any. And here's a question though. Do we actually need vegetables to be healthy? Standard American diet, if we're just talking about the standard American diet, vegetables will improve your health significantly. If you're going from, say, regularly eating pizza, maybe that's your main meal, pizza, that's your main meal, and you suddenly switched it up and all of a sudden did homemade vegetables, pasta, and meat, I'd argue that your health would improve significantly. Homemade vegetables, but homemade prepared vegetables, homemade food versus ordering from Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Wendy's regularly, even Subway. I think Subway's, yeah. Even Subway. Subway would be an improvement over McDonald's and Burger King in general. It really would be. But the standard American diet is nutritionally void. When you add vegetables, you're going to gain more nutrition. But if we increase our meat intake significantly, vegetables become less and less needed. Hear me on this. If we increase our animal fat, animal protein more, then the vegetables become less and less necessary. But if we're going to be on the standard American diet, that's what we're consuming, please put vegetables in your diet. You do need it. Obviously, with those who have autoimmune diseases, there is some real considerations there. And many are discovering that if they go over to eating animal fat and animal protein when they have autoimmune diseases, their symptoms improve. That's what. There's a gentleman on YouTube who interviews a lot of people who have jumped over to the carnivore diet, and they confess they talk about the benefits they've gotten from the carnivore diet. And the big one that comes up over and over and over again is how they've been able to reverse their diabetes. Story after story after story, all by eliminating carbohydrates and eating nothing but meat, or going keto, just getting rid of the carbohydrates. And I apologize, we are about to have a train go by at freaking 11:15 at night. This is not fair. Oi. My next question that I hear a lot of, and I do apologize for this horn. Oh my goodness. This is so rude. Can I mute it? Okay. I'm going to mute this because this horn is so loud. I live right next to a train track, and it's 11:15, and for some reason they're still working. Go to bed, guys. Go to bed. Oh my goodness. Anyways, what happens if we stop eating fiber? What takes place? This is something that I adopted this. I did this 2 years ago. Stopped eating fiber. Everything I've heard from my doctor, from advertising, from news, movies, whatever, we have to have fiber in order to be healthy. If we don't eat fiber, we're going to get sick. We're going to get sick. I'm trying to say this in a not gross way. The big one that we get told quite a bit is the constipation, and that we're going to get constipated. I've been doing this for 2 years. I have barely eaten any vegetables. There has been a couple of instances, but for 2 years, no vegetables, no fiber, no constipation, none, absolutely none. In fact, I've been able to help my father with those challenges as well by simply switching out the amount of vegetable intake and increasing the amount of animal fat, butter, bacon, that kind of stuff. I believe, and again, I'm not a professional, but I believe that if we remove fiber from our diets, that would greatly improve the function of our colon and greatly improve the function of our entire digestive system, because our bodies can do nothing with fiber. As I was learning, fiber is like these long strands of sugar, and our bodies cannot break apart those sugars to be useful to us. So all it does is just passes through our system, and that's it. There's no nutritional value to it whatsoever. In fact, when we consume a pile of fiber and then we put a bunch of other food in there, that fiber prevents our stomach from being able to absorb the food that we've eaten. It was an idea that came out in the 80s. Obesity was on the increase, heart disease is on the increase, diabetes is on the increase. And what the thought was is that what if we got people to consume a lot more fiber that their bodies could do nothing with? This would block nutrition, this would block food from being absorbed, but people would be able to eat as much as they wanted and not get overweight. And so there was a huge push in the 80s to get everybody to eat fiber. It worked. People consumed it. I consumed it. In fact, some of my favorite cereals are high fiber cereals. People consumed, but the waistlines continued to grow. People consumed, but the heart disease continued to increase. I mean, yes, there are people who are unfaithful and don't eat particularly healthy, but you look at the numbers, you look at the stats. American people consumed healthy cereals more and more and more, plus healthy fibrous foods more and more and more. And the heart disease continued to increase, and the waistline continued to increase. Another big concern that we hear a lot of is, can you really get all your vitamins and nutrients from just meat? I hear a lot about this when people are arguing against the carnivore diet, and they bring up the wonderful sailors who came across the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm giving them a positive name because I don't know all the stories, but just stick with me. The sailors that were coming across the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean, and by the time they get over here, they're suffering from scurvy. And they were left on an island, and it was super contagious, and until they got with the First Nations, and the First Nations were able to help the sailors deal with their scurvy by consuming plants. And it worked. It actually worked. They dealt with the scurvy, and they got better, and the natives helped the sailors. Thank you so much, First Nations. Thank you so much. But here's the question. Why did those sailors get the scurvy in the first place? What was the cause? And what the argument is that the captain and the chef had access to vegetables, and they would eat that, but the sailors did not. The sailors only had access to these biscuits that I think they were called the sailors' biscuits or something like this. And this is what they ate continuously. They did get some vegetables, they really did, but just not that much. That's the argument. As I get distracted over here, I'm always distracted. But here's what I learned. The reason that the captain and the leadership of those ships didn't get scurvy is because they had access to dried meat. The vegetables did not store well coming across the ocean. As I understand it, they did have some. They absolutely did have some, but it didn't store well. They mainly relied on dried meat, and that's what they used. Plus, I guess some fishing. And the captain and the chef would get access to that food, but the sailors were so reliant on these biscuits, and the biscuits are super high in carbohydrates, and carbohydrates compete in your body with vitamin C. Your body needs vitamin C, but the carbohydrates get in the way of that. So you have to consume way more vitamin C in order for your body to get the benefits of the vitamin C. Well, these sailors, they've been eating these biscuits since forever, and they became susceptible to scurvy. I have not eaten any vitamins, not at all, and barely any vegetables. I have had some. I like my vegetables once in a blue moon. Over 2 years, no scurvy. There is, I'll go with Dr. Anthony Chaffee. He's hardcore. Guy is a freak, man. He's just super hardcore. And he's done carnivore for 5 years. No scurvy. There's this gentleman. His name is Bill Knott. Comes out of Alaska. Hardcore carnivore. No scurvy. Is it 2 years? Maybe it's a year and a half. Might be a year and a half. Carrie from Homestead How. 2 years. No scurvy. No vitamin supplements. No vegetables. Just hardcore. In other words, I think my point is more than made. Can we really get all our vitamins and nutrients from just meat? Yes. Especially, okay, so red meat is like the Cadillac. It's like the top meat. Red meat is very nutritious and filled with all the vitamins and nutrients. If you can get grass-fed, grass-finished, fancy-dancy beef, it's even the best. But then you can get your lamb, your goat, salmon. All of this meat is super, super healthy for you. If you can't get that, then going to Safeway, going to Costco, and loading up that meat is super healthy for you. Pork, chicken, and fish that is able to eat naturally is wildly healthy for you. Tons of vitamins, tons of good nutrients, yeah? But if you're only able to get factory-raised chicken and pork, it is inferior to beef and lamb and stuff like that. Actually, factory-raised beef is superior to factory-raised pork or chicken. But pork or chicken is still wildly superior to any manufactured plant food. And even organic plant food. Plant food. Now, when I say plant food, I'm talking, like grains, legumes, beans, nuts, that kind of stuff. Excuse me. That is wildly less nutritious than even just factory-raised pork or chicken, fish, and so forth. If you can afford it, beef is the best. But hey, do what your budget can handle. Know what I'm saying? Now, a big thing that's coming out right now is that doctors are saying that red meat causes heart disease, and the other one is cancer. These two diseases are being connected to, or have been, I should say, have been connected to red meat. Trying to think about how do I address this in a really, really proper way. Okay, so again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a health professional. I'm studying. all these books and everything I possibly can to understand health, to understand my body, so I don't get cancer, so I don't get heart disease. Our bodies are made up of fat, protein, cholesterol, minerals, water. If we consume that which our bodies are made of, there is no evidence linking those nutrients to heart disease. There is some very, very weak correlation that has been made by epidemiological studies. I was learning about can I speak English? Epidemiological studies. And what it is they ask a bunch. They give people a questionnaire or a few questionnaires, and ask them, do they remember what they've eaten over the last week, month, year, 10 years? And then the people try to remember, and then they try to draw conclusions from that. This is a very weak kind of study. They're not clinical studies. There are no, what do they call it, double-blind clinical studies linking red meat to cancer and red meat to heart disease. There just isn't. There is no link at all. Dr. Filippo Vadia, a heart surgeon from the United States, he argues red meat does not give you heart disease, does not give you cancer. Dr. Anthony Chaffee, doctor after doctor after doctor. And the reason why I'm naming doctors is that who cares what I say? Who cares what some dude with, like, I'm a fan of health, but I'm not an authority. But these people who have reputations to protect, they are arguing that heart disease is not caused by red meat. Moreover, the American Heart, the American Heart Foundation, the American Heart, forgive me, names, man, I got to get better at that. The American Heart and Stroke Foundation, I think is what it's called. They have removed cholesterol or cholesterol, saturated fat. There it is, saturated fat as a cause for heart disease. And red meat has saturated fat along with many others, and they no longer link it. In fact, that was disproven, I think something like 10 years ago, and now it is starting to come out, and it is seeing that there is, as I totally get distracted, we are now seeing that saturated fat is good for us, not bad for us. And that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So okay, now here's another one that comes up quite a bit is carnivore safe for people with diabetes? I've done a huge amount of studying on what diabetes actually is. So 2 years ago, I was 220 pounds, and I was racing towards pre-diabetes, and I got hooked on diet pops, diet sodas, and I guess I was saying it off. I got onto the carnivore diet, and I felt 1,000% better. And I found after a year I could actually handle a sugar pop. That surprised me. This is what I discovered. Diabetes is insulin resistance. So type 2 diabetes, I've got to be specific, pardon me. Type 2 diabetes is when our bodies no longer respond to insulin the way it's supposed to. Type 1 diabetes is when our pancreas is no longer producing the insulin that we need. Type 2 diabetes, our bodies are no longer responding to insulin like it should. But if we go carnivore, we remove the carbohydrates. We get the carbohydrates out of our system, and our bodies are no longer having to flood our blood with insulin. And this causes our bodies to heal. And actually, well, people are finding they're able to reverse their diabetes over and over and over again, going onto the carnivore diet. No, this is crazy, because Everybody will tell you you cannot reverse type 2 diabetes. Obviously, type 1, you can't reverse it. Type 2, no, you can't reverse it. Everybody will tell you that. Yet people all over the West, Canada, United States, wherever, are reversing their diabetes, getting rid of it. No more medication. Now, it doesn't mean that now, okay, I'm cured, I can just go in and eat the standard American diet and get sick again. No. But what it does mean is that they get off of the standard American diet, stop eating all those carbs, they don't need the medicine anymore. Carnivore is absolutely not only safe for somebody with diabetes, but I would argue it's actually needed by somebody with diabetes. Most people, if you have diabetes, the doctors will tell you to restrict in certain ways, but basically eat as you need to and take the insulin. And their bodies deteriorate and deteriorate and deteriorate till they expire as their bodies become less and less responsive to insulin. But if they get rid of the carbohydrates, their bodies improve and improve and improve. And no longer are they expiring too early and losing body parts. Lord have mercy. Isn't the carnivore diet too extreme to be sustainable? I think about this in two ways. One, the environment. Our land right now is in a real struggle because we have 8 billion people on the planet and we need to feed them all. And the farming is how we accomplish that. But if we continue farming, we're destroying the land and sending huge amounts of chemicals into the oceans and into the soil, and it's destroying ecosystems like crazy with the food that we're eating. What are we supposed to do? We've got 8 billion people. Some people are arguing what we need to do is restrict the number of babies being born. And if you've been paying attention to some of the stuff that's being talked about in China, North America, Ireland, South Korea, people are not having babies and they're worried about a population collapse. But there are some that are saying, well, this might actually be a good thing because then we reduce the amount of mouths needing to be fed because we're destroying the land with the farming. I'm not telling you that's one of the things that is a challenge for our population today. And if we were to go all in on carnivore and eating meat, would that not put more stress and more strain onto the environment? I'm going to argue no. Here's how. If we were to go over to a carnivore diet, we would eat less as a population. I usually eat maybe once a day, sometimes twice. No snacks. That's it. I'm not consuming nearly as much food. What if we could reduce the amount of food being consumed by our population by 50%, no one starving? What would that do to the land that's being used to sustain our population? I would argue it would make it better. If we could then go into organic animal farming, it's known as regenerative farming, but organic farming. It is argued and being demonstrated by some farmers, very few, but some farmers, that they are able to actually make the land better, nourish the land. That's what I was trying to say. They're able to nourish the land with the farming of the animals. And the animals are still being used to sustain the human population, but the animals are also nourishing and sustaining the land. And there's no pesticides needed. There's no petroleum-based herbicides. What's the word I'm looking for? Fertilizers. No crazy fertilizers needing to be used to sustain that land. That land is sustained by the fertilizers of the animals. And the ecosystem that gets built into this regenerative organic animal farming. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Another one that I hear about, and this is, I think, far more commonly thought about, is we're used to variety. I mean, When you think about what you eat in a meal, what you eat in a week, okay? Do you eat the exact same meal every single day? Or is it not variety? And that variety might even be like, okay, pizza today, tacos tomorrow, Subway that day, sushi, hamburgers. You have variety. And when you're cooking at home, you get vegetables and meat and grains, and there's a lot of variety. And then all of a sudden, some dingbat like me comes along and says, no, 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 eat the meat. And in our minds, we visualize, we're like, you mean only chicken and only beef? That's it? That's all I get to eat? And this vision of boredom and just the food won't have any variety and won't be delicious and wonderful anymore. Okay, first things first. Is there the level of variety in a carnivore diet like you would experience with an all American, standard American diet, vegetarian diet, or vegan diet? No. There is less variety. There really is. And I got to be honest about that. Those that try to, I don't know, get super inventive with the meat to try and make it simulate food that they experienced when they got to eat the standard American diet, I think that's a bit of a mistake, really. No hate, no hate. It's not for me. I like my meals to be simple and easy. But is it going to mean that you're only going to have 1 to 2 or 3 meals to choose from for the rest of your life? I disagree. Unless you're dealing with severe autoimmune diseases, in which case people like that do actually struggle with having very restrictive diets already. But if you're not dealing with an autoimmune disease, I don't have one. I have a tremendous amount of variety: chicken, salmon, seafood. Is I can't think of the seafood that I want to say. Um, Lamb, goat, turkey, pork, and then all the variety of ways of cooking all that. And I do allow myself some spices. I really do allow myself some spices. Uh, if I was talking to Dr. Anthony Chafee, Buddy doesn't even do salt. And it's not that he's like refusing himself, like, oh my goodness. Instead, he's just saying he doesn't find that he likes it anymore. I don't know. So maybe if I got super strict like him, but he does say, Dr. Anthony Chafee consumes primarily ribeye steaks. Same with Dr. Sean Baker. Just ribeye steaks. That's what he eats. And I mean, think about that. Wouldn't you get bored? And he says no. He says that he finds it absolutely delicious every single time he sits down to eat it. And he says that if he ever has a moment where he's just not interested, he just fasts for that day. And the next day it's delicious again. I'm thinking that in a lot of ways, maybe in the modern age, we have been desensitized as a population for what actually equates healthy food and good living. In a lot of ways, we've been taught that good living is us coming together as people and consuming food together, which I've got some amazing memories around that. So I don't want to throw like too much hate at that, or shade, should I say? But we come together and we consume copious amounts of all kinds of delicious food. And maybe what we need to center our lives around instead is still each other, but in activity, in storytelling, in creating, building, learning, instead of consuming. Maybe the uneducated speaks. So just a thought. Just a thought. Another big question that comes up is, how do you deal with cravings and food addictions? In this instance, I'm going to be a little slow on this because I didn't struggle as much with food temptation as I hear others do. My beautiful, wonderful sister lets me know that she really does struggle with that. And so I want to be caring and understanding in this situation. Here's what I did, and also what I've heard others do when it comes to the cravings and the food addictions. I snacked. When I began this diet early on, I just snacked. I did not deny myself because I'm coming from eating, burgers and fries and pizza and Subway and stuff like that. Then I'm going to 7-Eleven or the gas station and I'm picking up candy bars and whatever and eating when I felt like having something. Not, not actually hungry, but just I want something. So now all of a sudden I'm jumping over to this new diet. I'm jumping over to this new diet and I'm suddenly changing everything. I needed a crutch. I needed a way to make it through this shift. So when I felt hungry, I ate. But I made sure that I had food on the go, ready to go the moment I wanted it. Hard boiled eggs, chicken wings, deep fried chicken, smoked chicken. I love me some smoked chicken, man. Um, Hamburger patties, you name it. And when I was hungry, I ate it. I did not deny myself. I only pushed myself in the direction that I needed to go. I need to eat healthy. I'm 220 pounds. I'm sick and tired of being overweight. Literally, I was. I was so done with it. But I felt so trapped. And this was an answer to prayer. Like, me? You mean me? I could actually be healthy. I could be not overweight. So I snapped. I absolutely snapped. And I would eat my meals. I always had my meals ready to go. And then I had snacks ready to go. Hard boiled eggs, fried eggs, cold chicken. I don't know what it is, but cold chicken always does taste good cold. Pizza tastes good cold. Chicken tastes good cold. And I didn't stop that. And what I've noticed is a lot of people report this who struggle with cravings, who struggle with the addiction, the food addiction is they give in to the wanting to eat. They just don't give in to the what they want to eat. I've also heard from people that they had really supportive families, and what they did is they removed all the tempting foods out of the home. I didn't struggle with that, and I never requested my father, who I lived with, to remove all the food out of the house and like, I can't have that around me. For me, I was able to do that. But for a lot of us, get rid of the temptation. Just remove it, and don't try to do the easing yourself off of the addiction when it comes to food. A lot of the times, I'm hearing that a lot of people, they find it easier to abstain than to moderate. I just abstained. That's what I did. I was able to say no to the foods I shouldn't have, and I was able to say yes to the foods that I can have, and I just did that. And that seems to be the method that a lot of people are doing. Get rid of the food that is tempting. Get rid of the food that is a trap, and give in to the food that will free you. We can be free. I know it's cheesy. It's cheesy. I get it. I get it. But hear me on this. Think about this. Every time you go to get out of a chair, you're fighting to get out of a chair. I was rocking myself backwards and forwards trying to get out of a chair. It was embarrassing. I need to tie my shoes, go for a walk, and I'm huffing and puffing. My back is aching like crazy. When I started to really lose the weight and I was down, 30 odd pounds, it wasn't a fight to get out of the chair anymore. Or the chair, the couch. You know how it is, you sink inside the couch 5 miles and you got to hike your way out of it. It wasn't a fight anymore. Getting into my car, I had a 2024 Mazda 3. The thing is low to the ground, and I'm wildly overweight. It was a battle to get up out of the car. I could get into the car relatively easily, but getting up out of the car was much more of a battle. Lose those 36 pounds and eventually 52 pounds, it wasn't the battle anymore. Losing weight was freeing. And then going into the grocery store, right in 7-Eleven, right? And instead of like, oh, this candy bar is calling out to me and it's 2 for 1 for 5.50 or whatever, suddenly I'm just not spending the money. I'm not rich. I never have been. But having that little bit of extra money that's just for me, and now I could maybe go and get myself some fancy ribeye steak, a tomahawk or something like that, because I haven't been spending here. I could spend a little bit more over there. It was cool, It was cool. Yeah, I'm feeling like it's a little bit cheesy because everybody's talking about how free everything is. Like, oh, this is free or that is free, but it was freeing to me. But here's another big one though: isn't eating this way socially isolating? Okay, in some ways, one could argue, yes, absolutely. Everybody else is having pizza, but me. Everybody else is having burgers, but me. I'm the fussy one. I'm the one that's got all the wild allergies now, all of a sudden. And people are not. It's like there's a separation. Here's what I discovered. You will meet some people that are just plain going to be frustrated that you're not eating the way that they eat. And they're going to call you out and they're going to have something to say about it. It is what it is. You know, I think about gaming and, I like the video games that I enjoy. And there's people that'll sit there and call me out for the video games that I enjoy. But I still play my video games. And I think the same attitude comes with me when it comes to the food. I don't want to be fat. This food saved my flippin' life. And now all of a sudden I'm going to apologize for that which has made my life exponentially better. And I don't give that attitude. But it's like that's the energy inside my heart that gives me the ability to say no. And so very politely, I say, no, I'm cool. My brother-in-law, I love him to death. He's an amazing cook. He's freaking legit. Total computer nerd, does the computer thing and loves to cook and he's good at it. Like he's good. And I tell him no. And you know what? Buddy's got respect for me because I've lost 52 pounds and I'm back to losing weight again. My waist is getting smaller. It's so cool. And he doesn't give me no grief. And I go to the restaurant, right? Let's say I go to the restaurant. You think McDonald's cares that I just want the meat? For them, it's a sale. I'm there with my sister. I'm there with my friends, and I'm just gonna have meat. What are we there for, really? To hang out and spend time together. I can drink water if I'm so inclined. I don't have to have what they're having. It's more about the time together, and that's what I'm noticing is people care far more that I am there than necessarily that I'm enjoying that which has been presented. Most people are wildly accommodating. Very, very few are actually going to be a total jerk. And I've seen this to be around the world. There's always dinglebats somewhere, everywhere, but they're not the majority. So that's been my experience. It's actually been relatively easy. How fast can you actually lose weight on carnivore? This is individual. This is individual. From my experience, I lost, well, I mean, the first month I must have lost at least 15 pounds. I made a video earlier this week where I said 10 pounds. I think it was 15. Um, I think it was actually 15 pounds in the first month. Like I lost a lot of weight, just and it was water weight. My body was retaining water, and I lost the weight. And it just, as I'm sitting here like repeating myself because it was like, wow, holy crap. And then it tapered off. It tapered off. If you can see my hand here, it tapered off. And it was like 1 to 2 pounds, 1 to 2 pounds, 1 to 2 pounds. And this did not bother me. Years ago, when I was on the Herbalife diet, I was told that your body will explode with weight loss at the beginning and then it tapers off. And you really do want that slow weight loss versus a really fast weight loss. Because if it's a really fast weight loss, apparently it's harder on your body and you're less likely to be able to handle it in health. Um, uh, apparently it's damaging to the body. And then you're more likely to gain that weight back. Now, when I left the when I left the Herbalife diet, my weight came back with a vengeance. It really did. But I gotta own it. I went back to the diet that got me fat in the first place. So, it's my own fault. It is my own fault. With the carnivore diet, I've been a lot more faithful. But at the beginning, it roared off and then it's just tapered. Now, due to some Bad decisions that I made. I got busy and I compromised. I don't like using the word cheat. It was a compromise, and I paid for it. My body did not continue to lose the weight and go down in size like I wanted. It held on to the weight. It's and I man, have I learned, man, free compromise is not worth it because of what I want. I want to be at a healthy weight. I don't want heart disease and all the other myriad of diseases that we're dealing with nowadays. I freaking don't want them. And I've been convinced if I want the health, I have to feed the health. If I don't feed the health, I'm going to feed the unhealth. I don't want that. Lord have mercy. Another question that comes up quite a bit is what's the difference between keto and carnivore? Carnivore is like, man, it has to be meat animal product only. Some people will include milk and honey. Milk technically still is carnivore. It's protein and lactose, so there's a carbohydrate in there. Honey, though, that seems to be really contentious. Some people like it comes from an animal. It comes from an animal, and carnivore is animal, so honey gets included. Others argue no, it's actually truly plant, and so they refuse it. Keto is basically a huge reduction in carbohydrate consumption, an increase in animal products, so animal fat and animal protein, but still you have your vegetables and some fruit. Dr. Paul Saladino, I believe he's keto. I think he's keto because he consumes a large amount of animal protein plus fruit. And he seems to be doing quite well on that, but he's healthier than I am. And so that's mainly the real difference is just keto is going to be holding on to your vegetables and some fruit, and carnivore is only animal product only. So there you go. And here's a big one. This one I became passionate about because of how I grew up. Do you need supplements on a meat only diet? No. Rah. Okay. As a child, I watched my mother down pills every single day, multiple times a day. My poor father now, he's had a heart attack, 4 of them, in fact, and he has to take pills multiple times a day. They come with side effects, plus a huge budget hit. You're constantly spending money on these medications. And in fact, I remember as a child and even now as an adult, taking some Tylenol because my shoulder hurts or something like that. And I hated taking those pills, just hated it. But here's the thing. Go back 150 years ago, 1875, we'll say. How did the American population produce long-lived people without supplements? I'm not talking medication, I just mean the supplements. How did they do that? And people will argue, oh, well, it was because the soil was so much better back then. I disagree. I think that what it was is that their diets were primarily made up of meat. And that meat gave them all the nutrients that they ever could need. They did not need to supplement. Okay, Rodney, fine. 1850, it's 2025 today. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but just recognize that people are going to be like, but that's 150 years ago. We're today. And today, the food supply is not nearly as good as it used to be. We need to supplement in order to protect our bones, to protect our health, to protect our immune system, and so on. I have not had a supplement in this entire diet, and I've barely ever taken supplements in my life. In this diet, I have not had any supplements, none. And I do not have any deficiencies of any kind, including iodine. I'm going to argue that if our diet needs supplementation, then it is nutritionally deficient. And the carnivore diet is very nutritionally sufficient in the proportions that you need. It's bioavailable, And we do not need, in any way, shape, or form, to go down to the drugstore, to go down to the factories and give our hard earned money some more to those who create the supplements. And I don't think that they're evil people. No, no. I just think that due to a whole myriad of contributing circumstances and factors, we have come to believe that the only way we can be healthy and to fight back on all the bad health that we have in our world today is to go to the factory, to go to the doctor. I ain't got no hate. I just, we don't have to be sick. We don't have to be sick at any age. I am 50 years old. And I do not want to be hooked on or dependent on the pharmaceutical companies or dependent on the supplement companies or dependent. I mean, I'm dependent enough on water and the farmers with the meat. But man, they got us so dependent. I really believe that with good research, good education, we can learn how to live without dependency on the pharmaceuticals and the factories. And that we could get to a far more simpler, pure, and richer life by going carnivore. Well, you have stuck around to the end. I can't believe it. This is like my third live stream, and this one's staying up. I'm not taking it down. I thank you for sticking around. If you actually have a question, you can pop it in right now. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes because that's all of it. It lasted for an hour and 11 minutes. I was trying to go for an hour and a half. I think I might be talking too fast and rushing through the content too fast. I will say, for the longest time, I'll just continue with a bit more of a personal story here, but for the longest time, I had accepted my fate as being overweight. I'm going to be overweight for the rest of my life. I had accepted my fate. When this diet came along and it told me that I could lose weight without having to go to the gym, without having to get a whole bunch of supplements, without having to go through a starvation system diet, that all I had to do was simplify, that I could have access to losing weight and getting back to my teenage weight, maybe a little heavier. That shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. I'd given into it. I'm going to be fat. And I'd kind of given up hope. I mean, I was working and I was doing life and, going to church and hanging out with my friends and family. I mean, I hadn't given up, but I'd given up on that. Learning that I could actually lose weight and gain all these other health benefits that came along. Boom, boom, boom. I'll have to do another live stream on that. It actually rocked me to my core. Absolutely rocked me to my core. Because what I believed about health and how I understood how health works, I thought, there's no way. I'm going to be fat for the rest of my life. And yes, I use that word fat. I don't say overweight. I hate churching things up. Why do we church these things up or soften the blow? It's like we're almost like trying to self-deceive or others deceive. I'm fat. It's what I am. And that's okay to acknowledge that, because if I acknowledge what it really is, then I can really do something about it. Where if I soften it up, then I can't. Then my action is going to be more likely soft. I don't think we should run around being mean to each other, but I do think that when we're direct, when we're straight, when we're real, there's greater opportunity for success, for overcoming, to become better. Instead of being stuck in our ruts. You know how it is. Like we get stuck in like that place where it's like, we're going in the same path, and we can't see this way, we can't see that way. We can see behind us, but we can't see ahead of us. And it's this rut. And if we're real and we say things for what they really are, Rodney, you are fat. I am fact. And I say that for real. I'm more likely to be able to see the path that will allow me to get out of it. Yeah. I'm almost preaching here. Turning your Bibles to this, that, this, that. I really believe in reality. What got me into being obese in the first place was because I had stopped paying attention to what was real, and I allowed myself to just drift and just survive. I don't want to be there anymore. I don't want to just survive. Like, like I think about you. I think about you. And I think, as I visualize you, that you are a person who works hard every single freaking day. You're getting out there and you're putting 110% into everything that you do, like everything. And when you come home and there's problems, you're putting 110% into trying to solve those problems, whatever they may be. And imagine that I'm going to come along to you and I'm going to feel sorry for you. And I'm going to just treat you like you're a baby, and that you can't be helped or you can't help yourself. I leave you in that place of a rut and disrespect all the hard work that you do every single day. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not treating you that way. I'm not going to lie to you. And I'm not going to baby you. That's not fair. You've worked so hard to get to where you are today, to get to a place where you are today. And I'm going to come along and just baby you? Yeah, it gets me worked up. It gets me really, really worked up. Because it's like when I was, before I came to understand what I understand about health today, people babied me. They weren't honest. They weren't truthful because a lot of times they're not being truthful with themselves. They don't want to face themselves, the things that they need to face. And so they often baby the words to what they will say to me so that they don't have to face the situation and the stuff that they're dealing with in their own lives. Well, anyways, I'm rambling. I thank you so much. May God bless you. May God be with you. And may you have success in your life that is meaningful to you. Bye for now.